Hey guys, I just want to let you know before we get into this episode that we've partnered with Band Builder Academy. Band Builder Academy is the #1 place to grow your music career. Run by top label manager and Sony Vice President Todd McCarthy, so you know it's worth it. Enter promo code CONCERTS at checkout to receive 10% off membership.
Hi, I'm Philip Winters, the vocalist and guitarist of Tyrant, and you're listening to Concerts That Made Us.
Is everybody in? Is everybody in? The show is about to begin.
Welcome to the podcast, Concerts That Made Us. Interviews and stories, tales from the bus. We love taking you back to when it all went down. The greatest live shows and that cheering crowd sound. It's concerts, concerts that made us, concertsthatmadeus.com.
On this episode, I'm chatting with Philip from Tyrant, an absolutely fantastic heavy metal band from Michigan. The guys may be young, but I think once you hear them you'll agree they're just as good as the legendary bands we all look up to. Now, before we get talking to Philip, I just want to remind you about a pretty cool community. It's called Waterford's Alternative Enthusiast. You can find them on Facebook and Instagram, and it's a pretty cool place to meet people with similar interests in music. I've included links to it in the show notes below this episode. So, without further ado, let's get on with the show. Philip, you're very welcome to Concerts That Made Us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Oh, it's great to have you now. I'm looking forward to chatting all about your music. We opened the show with Pray for the Night. It's off your album, The Lowest Level, which was released on September 30th. Would you like to tell us a bit about it?
Yeah, so this is our sophomore release. Obviously, we were working with Pavement. So with this album, it's one thing. One of the main talking points is that we self-produced this entire record. I mean, we engineered it. Like, obviously, you can see behind me, we've got sound paneling and a drum set. So we engineered it and produced it ourselves, and then Alex Para mixed and mastered it from Atlanta, Georgia. And yeah, I mean, partly the record, we had a lot of time, with COVID and everything, to really dive in and write the songs and rewrite songs, and just spend a lot of time making music, and this new album's a result of that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get you. And, was there a message with the album? What were you hoping to tell the fans with this album?
So there's not really one. It's not like a concept album, but the title has many different interpretations, and I don't want to impose anything onto the listener, but from my perspective, it comes from a place where we were all sitting at home and just kind of feeling really down and depressed about not being able to play shows and the uncertainty of everything at that point. And But yeah, like lyrically, we cover everything from the greater and lesser keys of Solomon, and magical ley lines and personal experiences. So there's not one overarching message other than just heavy metal.
What better message can there be, huh?
Exactly.
Something I've noticed since listening to you guys is, you're young guys, but geez, you could go toe to toe with the likes of Metallica, guys like that. You're really on point.
Well, thanks, man. I really appreciate that. We spend a lot of time just trying to get good.
It's definitely paying off. What has the reaction from the fans been like since you released it?
Surprisingly, well, not necessarily surprisingly, but overwhelmingly positive. Anytime you put out a new album or a single or a video, you don't really know how people are going to respond. But a lot of people seem to really be enjoying the album, and this album has a wider reach than the previous stuff we've done. People from Japan are buying the CDs in droves, and Greece and Switzerland, and obviously in the United States and Canada. But yeah, I mean, and then obviously we're kind of lurking on forums and discussion boards, where people are talking about the album, and it seems mostly positive. Obviously there's a few people in there that are like, the guitar solos suck or the bass can't be heard, like little nitpick things, but overall it's pretty positive.
I have to ask, since you mentioned it, when you're looking at forums like that and you see guys saying, something about the solo or the bass, is it hard to hold back and not be like, well, I'm actually in the band and this is,
No, because honestly, I look forward to those comments. Not saying I want people to react negatively, but it's they still heard the album, and they're still getting a reaction. You know what I'm saying? It's art.
Yeah.
Once you put it into the public domain, it's no longer yours. So you look for the reactions, and whether it's positive, negative, or indifferent, they still heard the album. They interpreted the art, whatever it is. And sometimes we can take those negative comments and really try to correct them. You know what I'm saying? Maybe there's some truth to whatever the comment is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. And At this point, I usually like to dive into the history of my guests. Now, you formed in 2012 in high school, but just before that, we'll dive back a bit deeper. Can you remember your very first musical memory?
That's tough because I've been playing violin since I was 4. That was where I started, and I think that would probably be my earliest musical memory. Is I saw my sister playing violin, and I just told my mom, I was like, I want to do that. You know what I'm saying? I don't play the violin much anymore. Obviously, I'm mostly doing guitar and vocals, but that was one of my earliest memories is watching my sister play the violin and wanting to imitate that.
And what made you transition then from violin to guitar?
Uh, I think I was like 12 at the time, 12, 13. And you know how it is being a teenager, you're full of angst and you just want to like rock out. I progressed into rock and roll and heavy metal. And yeah, I just really was drawn to rock and roll early on.
Yeah, I get you. I get you. And, then in high school, you formed band. What was that process like? Was it just a group of friends getting together to have a laugh, or was this something you were taking seriously?
So my brother, he's also the drummer. We had always been playing music together, and we were in like a community rock group, if you will, where young kids would get paired with other young kids, maybe playing bass or singing. And, that's how we kind of formed the band initially. My brother and I were always playing music, and then we found people like-minded and of our age, and we were like, let's just start a band.
And what was it like then? Were you playing, school dances, stuff like that? Was there much support in school?
No, we didn't play any school dances because obviously we were playing stuff like Metallica and you know some of the heavy metal. But we used to do like, I guess you could call them showcases, I guess, with other, you know, kid group rock bands. Um, but yeah, we were always one of the favorites. And I know how vain that sounds, but we would just get up there and rock.
Yeah, I get you. I get you. When you're performing, especially in the early days, how do you work on, being a good front man or being a good band and getting that engagement from the crowd?
So being a good front man is something I like to think I'm a pretty decent front man. It's something I had to learn, because I remember the very first time stepping on stage, and I was very nervous and I didn't really know how to engage. And but now with so many years under my belt, I try to imitate the energy that I want to see from the crowd, and be commanding. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? You can't be timid. You can't, you know, be shy. You have to be confident. Guaranteed you're probably going to mess up here and there. That's just the nature of playing music in front of a live audience. But you got to be confident and also back it up too. You can't get up there and suck and expect everybody to love you.
True, actually, yeah. Yeah. And then, going through high school and stuff like that, what was the point when you, kind of noticed things are starting to happen? We really are that good, and, we're getting some traction.
Yeah. So with that, we made our first demo, and we like burned it onto a bunch of CDs and just passed it out to like everyone in the school. And a bunch of people were like, "Okay, this is kind of cool." But going back to the negative comments thing, a bunch of people were like, "Man, I don't know who the vocalist is, but you need to get a different one." And then
Oh,
so I took that. I took that, and I was like, "Okay, how can I do this better?" And I still do that. How can we make it better? But yeah, early on, we spent hours and hours and hours just hand making CDs and cutting out all the artwork and passing it out to all of our friends in high school.
Jeez. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
I imagine it doesn't happen as much nowadays. With Spotify and stuff, it's more so just look us up on Spotify or Apple Music and hear our songs. It's kind of like it's after losing a bit of its magic that bands wouldn't be handing out CDs and demos and all now.
Yeah, I remember I was at a Metallica show one time, and I don't know if we were leaving or going in, but there was a band. I don't know if you're familiar with Battlecross, but they're from Detroit, another great heavy metal band. And they were just standing out there slinging CDs, and I still have one somewhere. But I was like, that's so cool. You know what I'm saying? And but yeah, I mean, in 2022, nobody's really doing that. If anything, they're passing out like business cards with like QR codes saying, "Hey, check it out."
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of CDs, would it be something that you'd like to happen to have your music on a record? The way records are coming back around now.
Yeah, so we actually are pressing some vinyl. We sold a surprising number of vinyl during the pre-order phase. But actually, we also did something which is still kind of mind-boggling to me, but we're putting up cassettes tomorrow for like the 1 month of the album. But it's so weird, like cassettes are coming back. Obviously, they're still very niche, right? But they're other bands and bigger bands just keep popping up with new cassettes, and it just makes me think of like the 80s, when Metallica and Megadeth and Exodus and whoever, they were just trading cassettes, and that's how new music was discovered.
The old bootleg cassettes and everything like that. But geez, I was just thinking, if someone gave me a CD, I'd be hard pushed to remember where my CD player is. I'm fairly sure I don't have like a tape player now.
Yeah. It's funny because I told the guys in the band chat the other day, I said, hey, we're doing some super limited edition cassettes, and our bass player Sal, he loves that like super niche underground music, physical media. And then Chuck, our guitar player, he goes, who the hell has a cassette player anymore?
Yeah, it's a good point. But then, it's a good collector's item as well. In 10, 20 years to have that would be pretty epic.
Yeah.
So speaking of gigs, you mentioned you were at a Metallica gig. What gigs do you think, as a concert goer, have made you?
Some of my most memorable concerts, obviously seeing Metallica and Megadeth and stuff like that, but one that really sticks out to me was seeing Kiss for the first time. And my brother and I, we were so young and so impressionable, but just standing there and seeing those huge plumes of fire and smoke, and you could feel it on your face. We were like, wow, this is cool, Yeah. And, we actually saw Kiss in 2019, and those dudes are pushing 70, early 70s, and they still rock really hard for like 2.5 hours. And every time I see them, I'm just like, I obviously people either hate Kiss or they love Kiss, but every time I see them in concert, I'm just like, okay, that's so cool. You know what I'm saying? They've perfected the rock and roll persona and the music and the show and everything. Just an amazing concert,
Yeah. I seen them back in, I think it's 2007 or 2008, and I was the exact same. It absolutely blew my mind. It's so much more than a show. It's an experience, everything that's going on with Gene flying around on the strings and everything like that. But brings me to my next question. What do you think goes into a great stage show or a great performance?
I think a lot of it is lighting, but also, I saw Ghost a few years back, but they had incense going too, which kind of opened my mind. I was like, okay, not only is it an auditory experience, a visual experience, but it's like an olfactory experience. The smells and everything just combining together in a way that creates an atmosphere. It's all about setting atmosphere and matching the mood of the music. So Kiss and Ghost are great examples of that. Everything ties into itself. Just setting a great atmosphere with lighting and like I said, even the incense I thought was a great touch.
Yeah, it's not something you'd see at many shows now, or it's not something you'd even think if you were putting together a show. It's really thinking outside the box. They're actually another one I've seen as well, one of the best concerts I was at. Just, again, the entire stage show of it,
Yeah, absolutely amazing.
Yeah. And, from gigs you guys have played, you've played some pretty cool gigs and played support for some pretty cool bands. What gigs do you think have made you guys?
Obviously, our first show we've played, like our very first show ever was pretty formative. I think we played to maybe 6 people.
Right.
But one of my favorite show experiences was when we opened for Diamond Head, and Brian Tatler, the guitar, comes up to me after I'm putting away my guitar or whatever, and he comes up to me and in his super British accent, he goes, "I really, really liked your music." And I it's so like, kind of trivial, but I thought it was really cool. This guy's a metal legend, been around for decades. And he comes up to us and he's like, "Okay, that was cool." So,
Yeah.
and I still think about that from time to time, because even those great metal guys, they're still pretty humble.
That's, geez, hearing that from someone like that though is, it doesn't get any better than that. And the point you made about, those metal guys being so humble, that's something I actually hear a lot. And I'm sorry to say I'm a bit surprised about it. A lot of people say that when they've worked with these massive legends that they're so nice and so humble. But you'd kind of, if you're not in that world, I suppose, you'd kind of think, everyone at the top is a bit, to put it nicely, mean and selfish, But obviously it's not like that at all.
No, at least not in the rock world. These guys have spent the past 30, 40 years just grinding, and whether or not you like Dave Mustaine, the guy's, he's a hole to his bandmates, but to his fans, he's super appreciative. Like, even I read his book so many years ago, but he was talking about when the internet was first a thing, and he was, the first person on it. Well, not really, but he was on there, and he was emailing all of his fans and sending letters. And these guys are not villains. They're, some of them are bad people, but a lot of them are super appreciative of their fans and everything, all the support. And it's, like even Glenn Benton from Deicide, he puts on this really scary persona. But I remember when we opened for Deicide, he was like on the phone in the back of the venue, like talking to his wife or his girlfriend or something about what they're gonna have for dinner to, like, when they get home from tour or something.
I suppose it just goes to show it is a job, and it is being on stage, it is a persona, behind that they're just normal people.
Yeah, I mean, being on stage is very theatrical. You know what I'm saying? You're there to put on a performance.
That's it. And if you had to pick one overall that you could, constantly revisit, that you'd say was the best time you've ever had on stage, what would it be?
The best time probably one of our headlining shows in Lansing. We did an album release show back in 2016, and it was so close to sold out. I think we were shy like 70 people. It was like 400 some people, but I don't know. It was just so amazing. All of our friends and family and our fans were there, and we just put on a hell of a show, and it was so much fun. And I still think about that show. Unfortunately, that venue's closed, but I would love to do that again.
Yeah, I get you. And I always follow it up now, not to get too negative, but the worst experience you've had on stage, and how did you overcome it?
There have definitely been some rough shows in the past. Most specifically and most recently, we played Michigan Metal Fest, and the forecast the week leading up to it was supposed to be, like 80 degrees and sunny and all this beautiful weather. But when we get there, it's just downpouring like all day. And they delayed our set by 45 minutes because there was like a severe thunderstorm warning. And then some dude comes running up to us and he goes, "All right, go up and play." And we were like, okay. And so we get on stage and there's maybe an inch or two of just standing water. And, there's like power strips and cables and everything. And we were all looking at each other kind of like, do we do this? Like, are we going to get electrocuted and potentially die on stage? And our bass player, Sal, kind of rallied us. He's like, we're here, our gear set up. Let's just do it. And so we did it. And it was a great time, but it was terrifying. We had a lot of reservations and, obviously I think Chuck got shocked at one point or his amp was cutting out or something. So, it was bad, but we made the most of it.
Jeez, I'd imagine there's not a lot of bands that would actually continue on, You've got a serious set of balls on you for getting up and actually playing in weather like that,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think a few of the bands just went home, and I think a number of the bands actually couldn't play because one of the mixers and like PA system was fried. So we said, what's the most rock and roll thing we can do, and we decided to just keep playing and put on the show.
True. I'd say the fans were delighted anyway with that.
Oh yeah, they were so happy.
Yeah. And, going forward, when you're in a band, you obviously have a plan of how you want your career to work out. What gigs, when it comes to gigs, what gigs do you already have in your mind saying, I want to play there, I want to play there?
I've never really thought about that. I'd really like to be touring, and I know House of Blues is a franchise, but they just seem to be like amazing venues, and I'd like to get us to the point where we're consistently touring and potentially even selling out like 1,000 cap rooms, 2,000 cap rooms. Really making a name for ourselves and being able to draw. Because when we tour now, we do like 150 cap rooms, and we'll do well. But yeah, I'd really like, obviously bigger and better shows, but yeah, I'd really like to play a House of Blues because I've heard good things. I heard they treat the artists really well.
You know what, though? You guys, I know it might be a bit off in the future, but you've got to make it over to Europe. Your music would seriously be loved over here. All the festivals and everything. Oh, you'd be one of the biggest bands in Europe anyway if you made it over here.
Yeah, I'd really love to come to Europe, man. It's hard though because everything's just increasing in price, and if the money's right, we'll make it over.
Yeah,
which is hopefully in sometime next year.
Oh, fingers crossed. I know there's a lot of great metal festivals on around Germany and places like that anyway.
Yeah.
Over in Ireland, we don't have as much metal festivals now. It's more so pop and light rock, but we get the odd, if Metallica are on a big world tour, they might stop in Ireland,
Yeah.
But one thing I love asking is when you get on stage, you have a great show. You're like a rock star. You go home the next morning, you get up and it's back to, your normal life. How do you process that? How do you deal with it?
So I remember going on our first US tour, we were gone for like 3 weeks and then we came home and it was like a culture shock. We didn't know like how to reintegrate, and, it took us some time, but I guess just developing or getting back into a normal routine, because when we're out on tour, we don't go to bed until like 2 or 3 in the morning, and that's just not feasible when we're home. But yeah, I mean, it can definitely be challenging sometimes because I think I speak for all of us. but just being out on the road and touring is what we want to do. And when we're not doing that, we feel kind of lost and just kind of like waiting around for the next time we get to do that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get you. And not all now, but a lot of bands I speak with are a good bit older than yourselves, and have years experience. So it's been years since they were a young band. But I'd love to hear what your pre-show and post-show rituals are. How do you psych yourself up, and then how do you wind down after a good show?
So for me, as the vocalist, I have to do like 30 minutes of vocal warm-ups and, stretch and open my diaphragm and drink warm tea. And so, for a lot of us, I think Chuck and Andrew, the guitarist and drummer, they kind of do the same thing. They stretch, they warm up, and, they kind of get in the zone, and they just want to be alone and focus on their thing. Like Chuck puts headphones on and just shreds for like 30 minutes. Andrew's out over there stretching and drinking water. And, Sal warms up too, but Sal's also like drinking a beer, socializing, which I could never do, like I need to clear my headspace and focus. And then after the show, that's when, we really just kind of let loose, and just hang out and have a good time.
Yeah. So will there be any, if there's a book wrote about you guys in years to come, or a film made, will there be any scenes in it where you're throwing TVs out the windows and trashing hotel rooms?
Probably not, but there will definitely be a few scenes of drunkenly stupid antics. You know what I'm saying? We don't get crazy, but there's definitely moments that are very silly,
I get you. You just made me think of something. What has been the most rock and roll moment so far?
And I hate to admit this one, but one time we were in our van and trailer, and it was like 3:00 in the morning, and I turned down the wrong street, and it was a dead end. And I think like 2 or 3 of the guys were asleep in the back, and Andrew was awake. And I was like, I could probably turn around in this person's driveway. And and so I tried to turn around, and I was like, okay, well, I'm going to drive through their yard a little bit. Like, it won't be an issue. We'll be respectful, and I'll just turn around. But we got stuck in their front yard at like 3:00 in the morning. And the wheels were just kept sinking into the dirt. And we tried taking the trailer off and everything, but we eventually had to call a tow truck. And surprising, like, I don't know if the people weren't home or whatever, but like nobody came out. And it was just like, Andrew still considers that the most rock and roll moment, just getting like 2 feet deep in somebody's front yard.
Oh man. Jeez, it's one of them things though, if it's going to go wrong, it will go wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And, I want to speak about Taco Bell's Feel the Beat. You were included in that. What was that process like?
So with the Feed the Beat, we were kind of selected, just kind of at will. I mean, we submitted, but we were one of 5 metal bands that were selected, and so they gifted us $500 in Taco Bell gift cards, which was literally a godsend when we were on tour. And that's their way of sponsoring music, providing food for bands on the road, and it really was a big help. We were able to eat for free. We ate a ton of like burritos and stuff, but it was so good. It kept us fed, and it was. I love Taco Bell. You know what I'm saying? And nobody else complained. It was free Taco Bell.
How bad? I was wondering what it was. All right, because we obviously don't have Taco Bell over here, and I had no idea what Feed the Beat was actually about.
You guys don't have Taco Bell in Ireland?
No, no.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, yeah. I don't even think they have them in the UK or most of Europe. It's mainly just an American thing, I think.
Wow. Yeah, you guys are missing out. I love myself some Taco Bell, man.
It's just Mexican food, is it? Burritos, tacos.
Yeah, it's fast food, Mexican food, burritos, tacos, nachos.
Yeah, yeah. I suppose the closest thing we'd probably have over here is an Irish chain called Abracababra, where they make kebabs, tacos, stuff like that. But it's kind of more, there's burgers and chips and stuff like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I bet when you started this interview, you didn't think we were going to be talking about fast food and Taco Bell.
No, that's awesome.
So, if you were to sit back in 30, 40 years' time and think to yourself, it went exactly as I wanted it to, I achieved everything. What needs to happen for you to feel like that?
Uh, so that's like the curse of the artist, right? Everybody's got their picture perfect vision of success. Um, but for me, it means being creatively and financially free. I want to make the music I want to make and I'm going to make, and I want to make money while we're doing it. You know what I'm saying? And I want to not be bogged down by financial obligations, and not have to worry.
Mm, yeah, yeah, that's a good way to look at it. All right. It's all about getting paid for something that feeds your soul, really.
Yeah.
And would it be a case now that you want the mansion and the Lamborghini, or just as long as you could pay your bills, you know?
I want to, yeah. I mean, obviously, we're not going to become the next Metallica, and we're not going to make millions. But we want to be able to be financially comfortable and not have to worry about, like, if we want to take a 2-week trip to France. Any of the band members, it's not an issue. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just be as financially free as possible, and obviously, we don't expect to live extravagant lifestyles, but have a nice home and have enough food to eat. That's all we can really ask for.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes I think to myself, the days of, rock stars becoming multimillionaires and living these extravagant lives is kind of gone. It's kind of like an 80s and 90s kind of thing, the way the music industry is today.
Well, not only that, but rappers and hip hop musicians are the new rock stars. They're living those glamorous lifestyles. They're the ones with the money and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, very true, actually. And how do you guys, music nowadays, the music business, how do you guys approach getting your name out there and approach social media, because it can be such like a game of roulette almost.
Yeah, I mean, with social media, we try to run ads and stuff, but that's kind of it's kind of like throwing money at a pit, So the only real way now to get your name out there is just to play shows and just meet people face to face, because there's so many bands that are, on social media and trying to advertise and get your attention. But if you can get out and meet people face to face, that's worth more than likes and streams and views.
Yeah, I get you. So, you mentioned earlier on during the pandemic and everything, how did you guys actually, find the strength to keep going and not let the band just fade away during the pandemic?
We just kept writing music, and I mean, this is what we want to do with our lives, so we just kept going. I mean, it's as simple as that. We remained somewhat optimistic and just decided to write music.
Definitely used your time wisely. So
yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And what are the future plans for the rest of the year?
For the rest of the year, I think we're gonna maybe do another music video, and then just keep writing new music. And then next year, probably just a ton of touring, as much as we can handle.
Brilliant. Glad to hear it. Hopefully I'll get to somehow catch one of your shows at some stage anyway.
Yeah, man, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. Now we'll get on to the last couple. If there was a band or performer from history, living or dead, you could see in concert for one night only, who would it be?
I'd probably really like to see early Megadeth, back in the 80s when they were just super pissed off and angry.
Yeah, that's a good one, actually. It's one I haven't had as an answer before. I often say, wouldn't it be so cool to see these bands at the gig that they were discovered at? The gig that really broke them.
Yeah, absolutely.
The next one then, if you could spend 24 hours locked in a room with any performer or artist from history, who would it be?
Probably Prince.
Right.
Yeah, because he was just like an all-around great musician. He heard music a certain way. He played all the instruments on his records, and I'd really just love to see him in the creative process,
Yeah, I get that. All right, that's he's one of them. He's almost like a modern day Beethoven or something, wasn't he? He's like just this extra level of genius.
Yeah, he just knew how to compose a song. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. And the final one, if there was a song that could appear on the soundtrack to your life, what would it be?
A soundtrack to my life. There's so many songs that I think are applicable, but I'd have to go back to Kiss and go with Rock and Roll All Night. You know what I'm saying?
Good choice.
Yeah, just rock and roll all night and party every day.
Hello everyone, I am Matthew Thomas, the spirit of Super Cool Radio, and if you're looking for a great podcast that features the best independent and up-and-coming bands and artists, then check out my podcast, Super Cool Radio. Each week, I deliver fun interviews, and every Friday, I spin some killer music. You might not know some of these bands that I feature, but I guarantee you will love them. Check out Super Cool Radio on YouTube, Rumble, Anchor, Spotify, iTunes, or the streaming platform of your choice. Tune in and rock out.
Hey guys, I really hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please rate and review us on iTunes and Spotify. And if you're interested in signing up to Band Builder Academy, use the link in the show notes below and enter the code CONCERTS and you'll receive 10% off. So, until next time, keep rocking. Hey, what are you guys still doing here? The show's over. It's over. You can go home. Go on. We'll see you next time. We'll be here. Bye.